Hello, my name's Chris Kurzik, and I'm the Principal Engineer at Athabasca Engineering Solutions, AES for short. And what does AES do? Well, first of all, we provide third-party value evaluations. We provide training and certification. We provide equipment re-rating.
Welcome back, folks, to part 3 of Section 8, Division 2, with regards to the topic of minimum metal design temperature. The first topic we'll talk about is called impact tests and welding procedures. And the second part will go into quenched and tempered steels, and then it's a fairly short video, but it's a logical break. So let's continue. So let's dive into this. So PQR impact testing is required if the material meets the specific material requirements of 311.1, which is, for example, a low temperature forging, perhaps made to SA 350 and one of the classes, and that would be a material specific requirement. And also if it's a code requirement, perhaps say for thickness reasons. And the other one is if the weld passes are greater than a half an inch thick and the MDMT is less than 21 centigrade. Let's continue with the other reasons why we need impact testing. It's also required in B3 if the MDMT is less than 48 degrees centigrade. Joining metals are exempt with the following conditions. So 311.2.3 exemption from impact testing based on the MDMT, the thickness, the material specification. And it is exempt from impact testing based upon the material specification and the product form. And the third is the exemption from impact testing is if it's based upon, it must be designed based upon the design stress values. This is very similar to the what was talked about earlier. B.4 states that impact testing for the joining metals is not required if you have C or D curves, or they're exempted by the material specification. For example, a low temperature forging material, SA 350, but the details are found in 311.2.4b. And you got a temperature between minus 48 and minus 29, and no pass exceeds a quarter of an inch in thickness. And the SA specification includes impact testing at the required MDMT. Impact testing of weld procedures without filler metals. Part C is interesting. It says that if the welds are made not part of the material specification, then the PQR requires impact testing for the following cases. By code, if the weld thickness is greater than a half of an inch, not the weld passes, but the weld itself, for all MDMT, or there's alternatively if it's greater than 8 millimeters, 5/16 of an inch, if the MDMT is less than 10 degrees centigrade. And the final is the materials are exempt as per 311.2.4, which we talked about earlier, if the MDMT is less than minus 48 degrees centigrade. Quenched and tempered ferritic steels have their own specific requirements in the section, and the way Section 311 is, there's one section for alloyed steel. There's another section for ferritic steels, and so on in different classes. And then there's, of course, there's some overlapping requirements in 311.1. So let's talk about the toughness requirements. So the toughness requirements for quenched and tempered steels has their own table, and it indicates the requirements for impact testing or whether or not it's needed. An example of one of the most common types of quenched and tempered is SA 372, in particular the 1 chrome 1/5 moly grade. Another thing is the impact testing. If the impact testing is required, if it's less than, then if it's equal to or less than the MDMT temperature, and it is less than 0 degrees centigrade. Now let's continue with this. So we have the MDMT limits that are described in C1, and basically for class 1 materials, and recall that Division 2 has class 1 and class 2. Class 2 is more rigorous analysis and lower safety factors, right? And so class 1, if the ratio is, the stress ratio is less than 0.3, then MDMT and then the MDMT is less than 104 degrees centigrade, then impact testing is required. Now, for class 2, if the ratio is less than 0.24, so you can go even lower, then your MDMT is the same. It's basically if you drop below 104 centigrade, you've got to do the testing. Now, C2, if the ratio, the stress ratio, or is greater than the minimum ratio, then this means it's above 0.3 and or 0.24 respectively, then you take the MDMT minus TR, but it must be greater than 104 degrees centigrade. And if that's not the case, then impact testing is required. So let's look at impact testing. So 311.3.2 impact testing, section A and B, talk about the requirements for test specimens. In summary, it's the final heat treated condition. 3 test specimens per test are required. It has to be as rolled plate or heat treated plate, and there has to be 1 test set per plate. Pipe and rolled section forgings and castings, we have to do 1 test per lot. As we continue to look at C and D, location orientation of specimens, the requirements are based upon 311.7.2 and 311.7.3. And for plate, the impact testing must be transverse to the final rolling direction, just like shown in this diagram here. And the forgings and pipe must be transverse to the major direction of work. Okay, so that would be like that case shown there. So we will, and so the minimum lateral expansion requirements. There's also requirements for lateral expansion, and it's described in 311.2.1 B2. Now, quenched and tempered steels allow for drop weight tests to determine the nil-ductility range. And they say that if your MDMT is less than 29, then you can use a drop weight test to avoid the impact testing. But there are exceptions, and the alloys shown there are shown. One of the most common is SA 522, and there's a whole list of them in the spec, but these are examples. And there are special plate size requirements as well listed. and a special testing is required for forgings, and a minimum of 2 tests must pass the test.
I hope that you found this presentation useful and valuable to you. This was provided by Athabasca Engineering Solutions. We'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts on further videos. And we'd love to hear from you. Maybe we can do some business. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a thing. Take care for now.